There was a city between Big Hole and Kalispell that seemed that it might be a good place to stop for. I think we stopped for 2 nights, and that was Missoula.
It had its little historical section.
Kind of a downtown.
Yeah.
And on our full day in Missoula, we went out to see the Fort Missoula Museum, which is kind of in the heart of the city.
Big place, big park area, lots of land in the area.
32 acres.
Yeah, but they also have preserved some of Missoula's history by bringing in historical buildings to the area.
Watch your head.
Well, I'm fine.
You're fine, yes. Somebody else has been known to bash a head on a low post, huh?
Some of them come from different areas. Some of them were original to the area, but it was one of those things where they were spread apart over this land and you had a walking path, and you would just take this walking path and visit each of these areas.
Kind of like an open air type of museum.
Yeah, it reminded me of St. Fagan's Museum when we were in Wales. It had a history, a fort history about the Missoula Fort. The early fort history dates back to 1877 in the midst of all these Indian wars, for example, the Big Hole battle. And it also has the exploits of the African American 25th Infantry Bicycle Corps, that was fascinating. I had no idea about that. And it also had some history on the World War II internment camp that once held over 2,200 Italian and Japanese nationals.
So another not great moment in American history.
So as I said, there's a lot of structures. There's about 20 preserved historic buildings there, and they just bring the whole thing to life. It's absolutely fascinating how you could walk into a building, get a very short synopsis on its history, but just being there just brings everything to reality.
The view from the top of the tower as far as I'm willing to go, because somebody is a little afraid of heights. There you are. Hey, that's too high for me. So one of the things we learned about is this museum, for example, has 50,000 artifacts. And one of the things I think it struck both you and I as we were making our way through some of the indoor spaces, and there's like a few buildings that preserve military history. Out of their 50,000 artifacts, it almost felt in some of these buildings like they took everything and tried to display as much as they could. It just felt in some of these places it was so dense. Yeah, so there was like too much to take in, that in some of the instances, like it was hard to take in anything because you didn't know what to focus on. And so that was my one critique of the place, was I think they would be able to tell some of the history better by scaling back the amount of visual stimulus. Because
there are separate buildings. So there is the first building that we went into, we paid that small fee, and it was very well put together. And you had 2 sides to it. One was the internment camps, and the other was the history of the fort itself. And it was very well put together.
That was the best building.
Yeah. Then there's a building behind that I think somebody else put together. I think it was a separate entity that put that museum display together, and that's the one that was so haphazard. And so there was so much stuff you could not take it all in. It was too much, but we did our best.
You would know that, okay, here's a wall that's about Korea, but there was like 1,000 things on the wall.
Yeah, and you couldn't take it all in, and there was no kind of explanation plaques or anything that kind of brought it all together. So you kind of start moving through it quicker because you just can't take it all in.
Yeah, I mean it was a broad collection of military history.
It was some really cool stuff.
Yeah. But just be prepared to see a lot.
Yeah.
What's going on here, Julie?
So this is a landmark schoolhouse. Richard Grant was part of the building of this, apparently. But Richard, who is a Scottish immigrant, had a daughter who was Julia.
And what's the coincidence there, Julie?
Wow, because my daddy is Richard.
Yes.
And I'm a Julia.
And there's Scots.
And there's Scots in my family.
There you go. How coincidental then.
Yes.
St. Michael's Church Chapel.
St. Michael Church was founded at the suggestion of Father Urban Grassi, superior at the St. Ignatius Indian Mission. In the summer of 1963, Father Grassi sent William Claysons, a Jesuit brother, to construct a log church with a rectory and surrounded wooden fence. And it was said that the interior of the church was built with lumber from one solitary pine tree, really, including the altar, pews, and flooring. In addition, all were constructed without the use of nails. Huh.
We ended up spending 2.5 hours exploring this place. I think if you're in Missoula, from what we were able to gather, this is probably the cornerstone historic exhibit that's available to visitors. So when in Missoula, I think overall, I mean, we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We were also there on a super hot day too. So, sharing with you one of the things you can do in Missoula. We ended up going to church on a Sunday at St. Francis Xavier Church. From the outside, just an absolutely beautiful structure.
Very historic.
Built in 1892. It's the tallest church in the city. And when we walked in Sunday morning, just from that first appearance, it was what I almost picture in my mind of a church that would have been built in the time that it was built. Just
stained glass, kind of Gothic looking.
Yeah, paintings that were over 100 years old.
Beautiful.
You turned around in the back, there was a beautiful, visually looking pipe organ in the loft. It is a beautiful church.
It is on the National Register of Historic Places.
That it is, and so we do like to see historic places. And then we spent some time in downtown Missoula, just walking around.
So they had lots of shops, lots of restaurants.
We did find a place that worked for us that we enjoyed.
I enjoyed it
Quite enjoyed.
Yeah.
Which was the Tamarack Brewing Company.
Mm-hmm. They had great food. They had great beer.
Really good beer.
It was really good. We started with, they have a rye beer called Rye Sally Rye. I love the names that they come up with. Rye Sally Rye. And it was excellent. And then we had a salmon sandwich and that pita brew bread.
Was it kind of like a pizza dough-ish type of?
Yeah, but it was really, really chewy.
Did you finish?
Oh my gosh. Yes. It was good though.
Yeah. This was one of those places that when you're done eating your meal, there's no room in the tummy for dessert. Kudos to Tamarack. Enjoyed it. Missoula, more of a suburb type of town, so it just worked for us because it got us on our way to Kalispell. And this again rounds out our recap of things we did on Montana. So geez, we spent quite a number of episodes. There was so much to do. It was a great trip.
It was a great trip.
Yeah. And if you enjoy watching our videos, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can follow our future adventures.
Thanks for joining us at the places where we go.